Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and I am with a really special guest today. I'm with Gary Hoey, and in all honesty, Gary is... When I started this show, there's like a small handful of players that I really wanted to get on this show because their playing has meant a lot to me over the years. And I've actually been a real big fan of Gary's music. I think I have like everything he's ever put out. And so, man, I'm really honored. Thank you for coming on the show. And thank you for all the great music you made over the years. I've really enjoyed it many times over.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. If you don't know Gary's background, I'll tell you a little bit about him. In 1990, he teamed up with singer Joel Ellis, bassist Rex Tennyson, and drummer Frankie Banali, who went on to play with Quiet Riot. I sound like Barbara Walters. Quiet Riot and Wasp to form. And Gary joined up with those guys who formed Heavy Bones. They released their debut album in 92, but they broke up shortly afterwards. In 93, which is when I got turned on to him, he recorded the successful Animal Instinct album, which included a cover of the Focus hit called Hocus Pocus. And not only did the hit rocket into the Billboard Top 5 on mainstream rock tracks, outpacing all other singles as the most frequently played rock song of the year, which is amazing. It's an instrumental. But the album went on to reach classic rock notoriety. And the successful album Endless Summer 2, which is a great record, the soundtrack to that soon followed. Gary's recorded, I hope I got this right, Gary, 16 albums in total?
I'm up to 22.
22 albums in total. I apologize. Something's wrong. I only got 16. In the last 23 years, that's what's impressive, man. 22 albums of good music in 23 years is almost unheard of. And he's had 5, correct me on the numbers if I'm wrong, please, 5 top 20 Billboard hits. Yep. And as a writer, producer, and player, Gary's also recorded for Disney, ESPN, and the No Fear Company. He's performed the national anthem for the New England Patriots, the San Diego Padres, the Boston Red Sox, and the Boston Bruins. His popular Ho Ho Hoey series of Christmas CDs and on-air station visits during the holiday season are an annual staple at hundreds of radio stations nationwide, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. Moreover, his live annual interpretation, Ho Ho Hoey's Rockin' Holiday Show, gains new fans each year. And there's even a couple of Hallmark musical greeting cards featuring 2 of Gary's Ho Ho Hoey classics. In addition to touring as a headline act, Gary's toured and traded licks with Brian May of Queen, Ted Nugent, Foreigner, Joe Satriani, the Doobie Brothers, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Eric Johnson, Steve Vai, Peter Frampton, Rick Derringer, Deep Purple, and Lita Ford, a who's who of Axemen and Axewomen, I should say. Gary also supported Jeff Beck on the U.S. leg of his spring 2010 tour, and he played on and co-wrote songs on Lita Ford's album, Living Like a Runaway album, in 2012, and he also toured with her in support of that album. Man, thank you again so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
Okay, so tell me if this is true or not. I read online, this is on Wikipedia, and I'm sure they got half the story right. When you were 14, you used to hang around outside of Berklee looking to find guys to give you lessons. Is that true?
It's pretty close to the truth, yeah. I wanted to go to Berklee to study music because at one point I was playing guitar. I didn't really know what I was doing. I wanted to learn some theory. And I said to my mom, I want to go to the Berklee College of Music in Boston. And she said, well, we have 6 kids. You know, we don't have that kind of money. She goes, but maybe go down there and hang out at the bookstore. Maybe you'll learn something. You know, just, you know how moms are.
Yeah.
So go down, take the T down to Boston. And I was just hanging around the bookstore. And I happened to run into a guy walking out with a, backpack or whatever. And I said, hey, do you go to Berklee? He goes, oh, I'm graduating in like a couple of months, man. I'm out of this place. And I said, wow, you must know a lot of theory. I said, would you be into teaching me on Saturdays if I paid you $20 a lesson? He's like, yeah, man, that's great. I wanted to get into teaching anyway. So I started going to this guy's house on Saturday. And he said, buy this sight reading one, melody book one or whatever. And I bought them right there on the spot. And then I started going to the guy's house on Saturdays. And I basically learned, some jazz and how to read and theory stuff without actually going to Berklee. I got a backdoor education.
That's awesome. At 14, you did that.
Well, I was probably close. Actually, that time I was actually closer to I wasn't 14. I started playing when I was 14. I probably actually started going into the city when I was more like 16 to 17.
That's still pretty ambitious for 16 and 17-year-old. That's good, man.
but I wasn't actually 14. And I used to go in, and then I ended up moving to Cambridge. I ended up moving when I was 18, close to the city.
Very cool, man. Great story. Thank you. Why don't someone all right, so someone correct this on Wikipedia, please. It's bad info. Okay, so talk about your Ho Ho Hoey Christmas specials, because I have these 4, I think they're bootlegs, but they're recordings from 98, 99, and 2001. And I don't even know how I recorded them, because I have them on digital, and it was from a radio station, from Live on Rock 101.5 KGB and Live on Rock 105.5, I think it's KIOZ. And I just had some questions. So I always thought you're from the Boston area, but it seems like you have a very strong relationship with San Diego. So I wasn't sure at the time, like, what was going on there? Did you have a big foothold in your career in San Diego, or?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I moved out to LA after I auditioned with Ozzy.
Okay.
When I auditioned for Ozzy, I didn't get the gig, but he had suggested that I move to LA. He said, Gary, you got to come out here. This is where it's going to happen for you. So I moved to LA, and I ended up signing with a manager, Dave Kaplan, who was my guy for about 15 years, and he was in the San Diego area. So I ended up, living in California for 17 years, became very connected to Southern California, and, got a lot of support from San Diego. It was one of my biggest markets, actually, selling-wise.
Okay. Now I get it. That makes sense. So I didn't want to ask you the Ozzy thing, because I thought everybody's always asking you, but since you mentioned it, you want to talk about it, the story behind that?
But with the whole Ozzy thing?
Yeah, if you want. I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was probably my biggest break in my career, because I was, I was studying guitar in Boston with a lot of different guys. I was really practicing my jazz, trying to become a better musician. But I was a rock player, and Black Sabbath was my biggest influence when I first started playing. I was obsessed with their music. And Ozzy came through Boston. He was on WBCN, and he was on the radio talking about looking for a guitarist. So I literally called the radio station, and I said, I want to audition for Ozzy right now over the phone.
Holy shit, that is awesome.
And they got him on the air, and I guess I played a riff over the phone, and and they said, Ozzy likes the way you sound. Can you send a demo tape? And I sent a demo tape, and a couple of weeks later, I actually got a call from some guy. He's like, I'm Ozzy's tour manager or something. We're going to fly you to LA to do an audition. And I thought it was a joke. But I got a call, and Ozzy flew me to LA, a kid from Lowell, Massachusetts. And it was, the most amazing experience for me, because to be in a room with Ozzy was so incredible, and get to play with him. And Randy Castillo passed away since then, but Randy was playing drums. Phil Soussan was on bass, and it was an awesome experience. And that ended up, inspiring me to move to Los Angeles and get out there and try to chase my dream. And the fact that Ozzy said I was pretty good gave me a lot of faith in myself that I had what it took to make it.
How old were you at the time this happened?
I was 27.
So but it sounds like you're pretty. I don't know. A lot of musicians are not as like they're not as not forward. They're too afraid. They're often afraid, and it sounds like you're real comfortable, like going for shit.
Yeah, man, I was definitely an adventurous guy. Like, I had no fear about just going after stuff, and I thought the least that could happen, worst that would happen is they would say no,
sure,
or I'd fall flat on my face. And when I was young, I started studying martial arts when I was 13, me and my friend Dave, and I became a 4th degree black belt. And I think martial arts gave me a lot of confidence in myself, and it gave me a lot of faith that, if you work hard at something, you can achieve a lot. And it gave me, a confidence in myself to say, why not just go for it? If you put in the work, why shouldn't you have the shot,
Yeah. No, I was going to ask you where that came from. So I'm glad you said it's interesting, because not a lot of people, 16 going to Berklee and saying, hey, dude, can you, that's, the average 16-year-old kid would be a little overwhelmed with it. It sounds like you had like better coping skills than most.
Yeah, I think I did, man. And I just, I've always been a very open, friendly kind of person. I've always been quick to make friends no matter where I go, and to not be afraid to just talk to strangers, in situations where I can make a friend and connect with people.
Well, this is, you completely won't remember this. I actually saw you in I think I might have told you this, in Austin for South by Southwest at this is probably like the early 90s, 94, I'd say 3 or 4. And it was so cool. It was, it was a bar, but you were so cool. You walked around, you talked to everybody. And I thought, man, that is so cool. Just like you were very comfortable doing that. You could, there wasn't like, I got to go make the rounds. It was like you were real genuine about it. And I always thought that was really cool, that an artist is like that, because it's not how it is all the time.
Thanks, man. You know what? You got to, I always say you have 40 seconds to make an impression on somebody. You can stand in a line for 40 seconds and you have 40 seconds to make an impression on that person. And you look them in the eye, it's genuine. And, and I think that, that's how I've always been, man, because I was on the receiving end of a bad experience with a star when I met somebody one time, which I won't mention the name. But, I remember waiting in line to meet them, and you're real excited, and they were kind of distant and kind of cold, and it threw me off. And I said, man, I'll never do that to a fan if anybody wants to meet me.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job, so you've accomplished it. Okay, so talk about the Christmas specials themselves, because they're really unique, very cool. And so basically, let me tell people what these Christmas specials are. Gary just plays like every great Christmas carol that's ever existed in Gary Hoey blues rock. Awesome. I mean, it's just like kicking ass rock with Christmas songs, And I was curious, like, where did you get the idea to start those? And like, maybe what do you like about them the most, these shows?
Well, again, it goes back to my mom. My mom was the one, she kept saying to me, Gary, you need to make a nice Christmas album. You need to make a Christmas album.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So my mom was the one. And I remember sitting down, and I first tried recording Silent Night, right? And it just sounded so hokey. I was kind of like, oh, this isn't me.
Right.
So I said to my mom, I said, I don't know if I can make a nice Christmas album. I said, what about a rock and roll Christmas record? And she goes, oh, you mean like Elvis? So I sat down, and the first thing that really made me realize, Craig, that I could reinvent Christmas music was when I did the 12 Days of Christmas.
Oh, that's awesome.
The 12 Days of Christmas, I kind of did this drop D tuning. I said, maybe I can take these beautiful melodies and somehow mix them with like good and evil, like the heavy riffs with the beautiful melodies. So I started experimenting with it, and it felt really cool. And we sent a couple out to some radio stations for like bumper music, me and my manager, to kind of test the water. And it literally blew up. The radio stations were calling us going, man, we need more of this stuff. People are really reacting. And so it was kind of just a happy accident, man. I did it out of the love of my mother and the love of Christmas music, because I do truly love holiday music. Growing up in New England, it's always freezing cold. And, I think you're a Jersey guy, right?
New York City, yeah.
New York City. So you grew up in the cold. You know how it is.
It's brutal.
Put on the music and you light the fire, and it adds to the whole season. So I was a big fan of Christmas music, and people just kept telling me, you got to do another one. You've got to do another one. And I thought it would just be a one-time deal. But now it's been 22 years. I've been touring on it. And every year we do a lot of shows, and we do a lot of fundraisers and Toys for Tots, and we help a lot of people out. And we make a few bucks too, so it's a great thing for everybody.
Yeah, and anybody who wants to see them, you got like 3 or 4 albums?
I did 3 full albums, and then we ended up doing like a double disc called the Complete Collection. We kind of stuffed everything into a double disc with some extra songs, and so that the Complete Collection is what we've been selling lately at the shows. Everybody
check out, it's really great stuff. It's not hokey, there's nothing, it's fucking rock and roll with Christmas songs.
If you don't like Christmas music, you might like it.
Yeah, you might, because you like rock and roll. So, hey, I want to talk about just a couple of my all-time favorite Gary Hoey songs. So let's start with The Deep. So you first released a short version of that song in 1994 on Endless Summer 2. Then you had like an almost 9-minute version of it on Hocus Pocus Live in 98.
Yeah.
And then my favorite version of it was on American Made in 2006. It's like a 6-minute version. So my first question is, that song is, as I mentioned to you before we turned the mic on, it is like a perfect rock instrumental ballad. But it sounds, and it sounds like the kind of song, like if I had to do a Bruce Willis movie, and it's like, I'm fucking saving the world. That's the song I need playing, because not only is it like just appropriate, it's just really motivating. You know, it sounds like, you know, in that song, it's like you're coming back from just impossible odds. And so my question is, like, what's the backstory to that? Because I was wondering if you were like exercising some demons on there, or, you know, just what? I mean, and I wrote down as I was writing that question, I put it on, man, and I got goosebumps. It's just anybody listening to this, you need to like put this on pause for a minute and just go play The Deep. It's just a phenomenal, one of the greatest instrumental songs ever made. Anyway, I'll shut up and you can answer that. Sorry.
Thanks so much. Well, you know what? That song was, I wrote that song during the Endless Summer 2 sessions when I was writing music for the movie. And it actually came to me, the director had sent me a slow motion underwater scene that was just this beautiful, you know, just tranquil, like slow motion thing with, you know, the surfer coming up from under the water. And it was so surreal, the whole image. And I remember just looking at the screen, I picked up my guitar and I started playing that motif. It just literally fell out of me. And then I started to develop the bridge kind of where it descends and it goes into the other thing and adding all the harmonies and everything. But I think some of the greatest things that I've written have been the ones that just kind of sort of felt like they were coming from somewhere else. Like I was channeling something through me and I was just the messenger. You know, I can't take all the credit. It's sort of like just, you don't know why you're doing it, but you're doing it. And that particular song, I remember when I finished it, I brought it to my manager and he said, I think you just wrote the best song you've ever written. And I was like, really? And he was so like just blown away. And then as the song came out, a lot of my friends and guitar players and fans were sending me letters about the song. And I was telling you a little off the air, I had a man that was actually on the verge of committing suicide. And he told me he put the song on repeat and he put the gun down and he sent me a letter saying he felt like I understood his pain and it helped him to get through whatever he was going through, which was really a powerful thing for me to think that song actually saved somebody's life. And then when I started playing it live, it kind of turned into a bigger song. And that's when we put it on the live record where it has the drum solo in the middle. And, you know, we tried to kind of make it a bigger epic piece live. And then we did a studio version of it to try to, again, capture what we were doing live in the studio. And even still to this day, it's hard to play a show without playing that song. I get, you know, people coming up at the end, how come you didn't play The Deep? So it's still a very popular song, and I'm really proud of it. But, you know, I think it was a gift from God, literally.
Yeah. How many tracks are on there? Because it's like is that guitar track upon guitar track, or is that synth on guitar?
It's all guitar. What I did on that was I have a guitar that Hamer made me called the Sustainiac.
Ah, okay.
Got like infinite sustain.
Okay.
So what I did was, you know, I recorded the main parts, and then when I started to layer the harmonies, I just used that Sustainiac, and it made it almost sound like a keyboard.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Because you know, I had a question here. What the hell did you use to get that sustain? Because it's like, holy shit. It's like it starts and it just does what you want and it doesn't stop till you need it to.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a violin. You just hit the note and it just goes as long as you keep moving that bow. You know, it's just amazing.
Yeah. What guitar, if you remember, what guitar were you playing on there initially? Or on American Made, if you remember? Yeah,
I was playing probably, well, the original one I recorded with my Hamer, I call it the Greenpeace guitar. It has sort of like a bunch of logos of like, you know, just sort of it has kind of a combination of like rainforests and pandas and all this like save the world kind of graphic on it.
Uh-huh.
But that song, when I did the remake, I think it was on one of my Fender Strats actually, called the Big Apple, where it has two humbuckers, which I've been using a lot. It's a double humbucker Strat called the Big Apple, which is the one I used.
Yeah, just tremendous, man. That's, you know, without sounding like a fanboy, it's just man, that is like a defining, you know, a career defining piece. You know, if every, put it this way, I think if every artist had a song like that, they'd be real happy. You know.
Thank you, man.
I was curious. My favorite album happens to be American Made, and if I go through my iTunes and I'm like old fashioned, I don't what do you call it? stream anything. I have like my kids are like, Craig, Dad, it's $10. I'm like, man, I have like 50,000 songs literally. I just like, I like having them in my iPhone all the time. Anyway,
I'm the same way.
you're just saying, yeah. I mean, it's just like, we grew up, we'd buy an album, I want to have that journey on that album and, give the artist or the musician the experience,
Too. I just bought 3 albums yesterday because the guys that went on tour with Eric Gales and Lance Lopez, I just bought their albums because I wanted to hear what they were trying to sell with their music and the journey they wanted to take me on through that record. So I listened to the whole record.
Right. Yeah, I can't get into the streaming. But if I go to my iTunes and I prioritize by like most amount of plays, I did it whenever I put these questions together. My top 7 Gary Hoey songs all come from American Made in terms, how many times I've played. So I was curious, is that the most popular album, or what album of yours is typically that people say is most popular?
I hear a lot of feedback. It's funny. I still hear a lot about my very first album, Animal Instinct, which had the biggest hit, Hocus Pocus. Right. And, it was probably one of my biggest selling records just because back in the day, people were buying a lot more records then.
Yeah.
So, that sold, well over a few 100,000, copies. So, it might even be gold by now. I don't even know, but it just kept selling. And, so that one's a big one. American Made is a very popular album for mine because I get a lot of requests for, Lunatic Fringe, The Deep, Reaction, I think was on that album.
Fades Away, yeah.
Fades Away. I still get requests for that song all the time. And so it's probably one of my most popular albums. And I would say Endless Summer is another one that's very popular. And I would probably say The Best Of, because it's, a lot of best of stuff. A lot of people like that album.
So, dude, you pick Hocus Pocus as your first song to cover. What do you like saying? Hey, what's going to challenge me the most on guitar? Or that's a difficult song to play. There's a lot of shit going on there.
Yeah, it was just a thing. My manager and I were doing my first album, and we were getting toward the end of the recording. And he said, we should put one cover song, one remake, to kind of draw people into what you're doing and everything. So he just said to me, "What's the song that you played in your garage when you were a kid?" Banging out the teenage years in a garage, like, what was the riff? And I said, Hocus Pocus by Focus was one of my favorite riffs. And I played it for him, and he was like, oh, man, if you could come up with a creative way of doing that, maybe take out the yodeling. He said, we might have something cool. So we went in and recorded it. And then the funny story is in the middle of it, I do a little quote to Stranglehold by Ted Nugent. I'd kind of play the riff and the breakdown, and I just did it as a fun thing, and everybody liked it, and we kept it. And then Ted Nugent actually called me one day on the radio and said he liked what I did, and we ended up touring together because of that one little riff.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, man, it was just one of those childhood songs that I had no idea it would become another hit, back in the, from the 70s to the 90s. It became another hit right in the middle of the grunge thing with Nirvana coming out. So can't believe we actually had a hit with it at that time.
Yeah, well, it's a great version of it. You don't hear too many people cover that, and they don't cover it well. And
I'll tell you a quick story, Craig. I just played in the Netherlands, where Focus is from. They're from the Netherlands. They're a Dutch band. And I walk into the show, and my record company owner, Ed, he's from the from the Netherlands as well. He had put in a call to Jan Ackerman, the original guitar player from Focus, and I walk in, and he's backstage standing there, and I'm like, you got to be. And we meet for the very first time 30 years after I record the song, or 25 years, whatever it's been. And that night he got on stage and played it with me live.
Wow, that must have been a really very rewarding moment for you.
It was amazing. I was you want to talk about fanboy? I was totally geeking out. I was really beside myself. And he ended up to be a super nice guy. We hung out backstage. He was funny. He was cracking me up. He was a nice man, and that made it even better that he was a cool guy. That's
so cool, man. I don't know if you follow bands out there. There's a ton of good music. Like, they classify it mostly as stoner rock, but it's just like real good psychedelic blues bands in the Netherlands, Northern Europe, the whole area.
Oh, I'm not doubting that at all, because every time I go over to Europe, the fans there are just so cool. The way they love music and appreciate music. I don't know if it's because we're spoiled, because we live here, but they're absolutely some of the greatest fans.
That's really cool. I know a lot of guys go over there, even guys that are like not rock guys. By any chance, Red Volkart?
Yep.
So Red goes over there all the time. A great guy, and he teaches clinics in like Finland all the time, and he loves it. Said the same thing.
Yeah, they're great over there, and especially with the teaching, they love it when you sit down and you teach them and everything. The clinics, I've done clinics, I swear to God, where 2,500 people showed up. I'm like, this is a clinic. Are you kidding me?
2,500 people?
Yeah. I used to do them like in giant auditoriums, like huge, like you wouldn't believe it. The clinics I've done in Southeast Asia, bro, where like 2,000 to 2,500 people show up.
Holy shit, that is amazing. You can't get like 50 guys at a music store to show up here.
Right, you get 50 to 80, yeah, you're doing great. But over there, they're just insane about it.
Wow, awesome. Another song you mentioned, it, "Fadeaway." It's one of my favorites. Great rock ballad. What's the backstory behind that one?
Well, that song I wrote. It's a song. I mean, it's a song that I had at the time. I had a friend of mine that was going through, he was going through a divorce or a potential divorce. And for some reason I probably talked at least 5 of my friends out of divorce. I don't know what it is, but a lot of my friends, marriage is a tough thing. And when you have kids and, the stresses of life kind of grow on you. I've had friends of mine that were like, I'm leaving my wife. I'm done. This is over. And I'm like, wait a minute. What are you leaving your wife for? Well, blah, blah, blah. I met this other girl and, she understands me and, with this and that. I'm like, dude, she understands you now. But the honeymoon's over and the infatuation dies. I promise you in a year, you're going to be back to the same place you're in where you're having troubles and you're either going to work them out or you're going to give up and move on. And especially when people have kids. I hate seeing people divorce when they have children. So what I tell them is this: when love fades away, because my wife and I have been together 22 years, and we've had
congratulations
times, where we haven't been in love, for a minute. We've kind of, gone in and out of love. And what I told my friends is, when love fades away, if you hang in there and you work it out and you really look yourself in the eye and say, I'm giving it 100%, I'm giving my wife the best of me, I'm giving her everything I can. When you get through that lull and you start to come back, your love will actually be stronger than it's ever been, because you've been through stuff together and you processed it and you came out the other end. And that's why the song says, when love fades away, I'm going to be here to stay. Yeah. Because it's just saying, don't give up when the times get tough. Hang in there, work through it, because what you've already invested in your relationship, to just give it up over whatever the reason is, unless someone's in an abusive relationship or, there's just no help. I always tell my friends, hang in there, man. Your wife can be everything you want her to be if you treat her the way she should be treated. So that's sort of where that song was motivated from, was just seeing a lot of my friends and even myself go through hard times in love, where, you have to hang in there, man, and get to that next stage of your love, because it's not just one continuous thing, man.
I'll tell you what, between saving lives and saving marriages, you got a good plan B as a therapist, man. If you ever decide to hang up your axe.
You know what? I'd probably be a great therapist, man, because
you would, yeah.
When I was a guitar teacher, it was half therapist, half teacher, because people always came in with their issues and we talk about stuff. But yeah, man, I would definitely be into helping people. Yeah,
I'll tell you what. I've been with my wife 25 years, and that is the number one thing I'm most proud of, because it's not easy, as you know, and
good for you, man.
Yeah,
congrats.
We've worked really hard on our relationship. Someone told me one time, because I didn't have good role models, and someone told me, he said your relationship is like your business. If you stop working it stops working. And I always remembered that. So I always knew, and I was very fortunate. My wife's been on the same page. So, and now we've been together so long that we don't want to have an argument. So if we argue, one of us always is like, hey, let's work this out, which is like wonderful. There's no ego or no.
Yeah. That's the way it should be, man.
Yeah.
And you get to that point where you've accepted each other and you're getting to a point where you're working together as a team, and you're enjoying life. And that's, I do come from a divorced family, like so many kids. My mom and dad divorced, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't easy. So I always said, when I make babies, man, you pine box. That's it.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And the thing for me, what I learned is, I heard this thing one time. It said, what's so important about being right? And I heard that And I guess I was in the right place to hear it, and I said, fuck. Man, this is going to save me a lot of stress in the rest of my life. And I heard that, and I was like, and so much shit that I had just like let go because I didn't give a shit after that anymore. It's like, you're right. What's so important about being right? Like, okay, it doesn't matter. What matters is getting shit done, and you know, your relationship or whatever it is, you know. So
it's very true. It's almost close to what my grandfather said. He said you can win the battle, but you might lose the war.
Yeah, right. Very true.
Relationships is like, you know, be careful of like exactly, like trying to always be right and trying to you know, feel like you got to prove your point. You know, if you just, you know, I always say God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we listen more than we talk.
100%.
And sometimes that's what it is for me. I just back up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen. Let this person get their thing out, whatever it is. And I have sort of found my way back to God. You know, my wife and I have sort of been on a roller coaster with religion, but you know, I do believe in Jesus, and I do try to think about what would he do? You know, what would God do right now?
Sure.
Whatever your God is.
Yeah.
You know, like, what would he do right now? Would he have grace on this person? Would he forgive this person? Would he just, you know, be understanding? You know what I mean? And I try to live by that, and it's helped me to save a lot of relationships in my life.
Good for you, man. Yeah, I never did this, but every decision I make now, it's really weird. Which is the path of least stress? And I never used to think like that. And I always used to think, oh, I'm Craig Garber, I could fucking survive anything. But I realized that's stupid, to be honest with you. It's like, no, you can survive anything, but you don't have to. You could just have a nice, fun time with it, you know? So now I actually try to, like, that's literally the first thing I think about, which is the path of least stress. And then, you know, as long as it's not a stupid decision, I try to go with that one. Weird. Yes. It's funny how you don't get smart until you're a little older.
Right. We find it. I'm trying to tell my kids that, but they won't listen.
No, they won't listen. Believe me, I got 3. Trust me. I'm only getting now. My older one is 20. He's almost 28, and he told me like about 6 months ago. He goes, "Dad, I used to hate it when we were little because everything you said, you were always right."
Yeah.
Yeah. I say, well, it's not because I was smarter than you, just because I walked down there already. You know, but now it's a little better.
Awesome.
For each one of these artists, I want to talk about you. You didn't sing early on in your career, and I'm really glad you decided to sing. Your voice is great, man. And what prompted you to start singing? Or maybe a better question is, why didn't you sing in the beginning?
Well, for me, my singing experience started out when I was doing clubs, you know, as a kid, 17, 18, playing in clubs, doing all the cover songs, you know, everything from Bryan Adams to Van Halen, you know. We did all the songs, and we used to play the Holiday Inn and do, you know, 4 sets a night. And I sang for a long, long time. And what happened was when Hocus Pocus came out, I did my first instrumental record. I had done the record with Heavy Bones, which was, you know, more of a melodic rock album with obviously vocals and harmonies. And I was singing background on the record, but we had a lead singer. And you know what happened was I made an instrumental record because I was a big Jeff Beck fan. I was a big fan of instrumental guitar music. And I just made that record initially thinking, well, Heavy Bones is probably going to do another record. This would just be like a project I could do on the side. And then when I had a big hit with it and went on tour with Joe Satriani and everything, my manager was like, man, you don't really need to sing. You're an instrumental guy. Let the guitar do the talking. So I didn't sing. I just kept making instrumental records. And then one day I had kids. My kids were born. I had my daughter, and she said, "Daddy, you don't sing. You don't have no words in your music." And she started saying it. My sisters were like, "Yeah, how come you don't sing anymore?" And initially, Craig, I was having trouble even writing lyrics. Like I was trying to write lyrics, and I'm like, well, if I don't have anything great to say, I'm not going to say anything. But for some reason, when I had kids, all of a sudden I had something to say. And I had these emotions that I wanted to say with lyrics. And I started writing lyrics again. And I started writing vocal songs again. And it was a little scary at first, you know, getting back on the horse. But I just started doing it. And I think my voice got better as time went on. I think the first time I got back to singing, I don't think it was great. But I just kept singing. And then I started producing a lot and producing other singers. And I started learning by being a producer that everybody's kind of got that zone where they sing best and where they don't. And I just try to find my range and, what worked for me. And I got excited about singing again. It really inspired me. And I was really pumped because I'd written so many instrumental records. I was getting bored actually doing 90 minutes, 2 hours of instrumental music live. I'm like, man, I want to sing. I want to have something to say. So it was a process of getting back into it. And it challenged me too. It challenged me a lot more trying to write lyrics.
What's interesting is your speaking voice and your singing voice, you would never put the two together, that they came from the same guy.
Yeah, man, that's weird. I think a lot of singers are like that. You hear them talking, you're like, that's not the same guy that's singing.
Yeah, it's really, really different. Do you think singing, like, you seem to be a guy that has no problem communicating, but you said when your kids were born, now you had this like flood of emotions. That wasn't exactly, but the kind of the gist of what you said, of that you wanted to get out. Do you think having kids, are you the kind of guy that would not naturally be emotionally communicative?
You know what? I think for me, it's just, when I had kids, I just felt like I had, I don't know if maybe more passion, maybe more emotion came into me, maybe more, more wanting to talk about things that I felt were important, whether it was American Made or, fades away, like I felt like, before you have children, your life is so different because everything is about you and what I need and what I want. And when you have kids, it's weird. Like every dollar you make is now not
a quarter.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, give me the dime. But, when I had kids, I felt like just my purpose in life became a different purpose. And so I think I did become more emotional, more passionate about things.
Yeah.
And I never had trouble expressing myself, but having kids definitely affected how I wanted to communicate with the world.
That's really cool. Do your kids play music at all?
Yes, my son Ian is 16, and he's a guitar monster. He's actually been playing since he was 5, and whenever I'm local, he comes up and plays with me on stage. He loves the blues, and I can honestly say he's got the bug, and his vibrato is awesome, and I think he's going to end up being a professional. He really wants to play music. And my daughter's more of a painter, more of an artist. She's actually studying in Italy right now, her second year in college.
Oh, that's wonderful, man. Congratulations. That's really nice. That's great. I give you a lot of credit because I think, making it in the music business is very difficult under any circumstances. But you making it as a solo guitarist / artist is exponentially more difficult. And I was curious what went into your decision-making process of basically always being, Gary Hoey and not putting together like a conventional band, and touring as the band. Although obviously you've always had really good guys backing you, but it's always been Gary Hoey. What was your thought process about that?
Well, when I was young, I wanted to be in a band. I really wanted to be the next Aerosmith. That's what I really wanted. And Heavy Bones was my shot at my Aerosmith, my melodic rock band. And I loved playing with those guys. But when the band broke up, there's always personal differences. There's always things that cause, sometimes drug problems, whatever it is, can break up a band. There's obviously many reasons. And when that band fell apart and I did my album with Hocus Pocus and I had a hit, I kind of made a conscious decision at that moment. I just said, happiness and peace of mind is really important to me. And I decided that I was going to pursue a solo career. Even if I never made it super big, even if I never made millions of dollars, I said I'm going to do something that makes me happy, that I can sleep at night and feel like I'm contributing something great to the world, to my musicality. And I just decided to be a solo artist. And I just kind of made a conscious decision to stay on that road because I could call my shots. I could do what I wanted. Yeah. I could not worry about creating this band, and then the band would break up. And I'd have to move on. And then my manager was saying, you should get a lead singer, rather than saying you should get a lead singer. And I didn't want to get a lead singer because I didn't want somebody singing on my record that would eventually maybe quit the band. And now I'm stuck with this album that I didn't sing on. So I kind of had a conscious decision to stay as a solo guy and that I would just pay my musicians, a good salary and they would be happy. And I've done tours where my band made money and I didn't make money in the early days. So it was building my business, building my brand. And I've had offers to audition for a lot of big things over the years, and I probably have had chances to join bands that I just didn't do. At the time, I had just too much going on.
Yeah.
And I wasn't making enough. I wasn't making more money than I would have made as a solo artist.
Yeah. I really give you credit for that. And I think the only way that works, and you're obviously this way, is if you're the kind of person that is okay and 100% willing to assume responsibility for yourself. You know, and that sounds like well, obviously, but not, as you know, most people really aren't that willing to do that. You know, it's why people think, they don't take responsibility for their health. That's why they spend 95% of their healthcare dollars in the last 5 years. I mean, there's countless things, but I give you a lot of credit for that, because there's a lot of work involved in that beyond what, I mean, you're running a business, and I don't know what it's like to be a musician, but I know what it's like to run a business, and it's hard. And now you got other guys, you're responsible for them. You know, it's just a big machine. I give you credit for that, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride. I mean, I've tried to reinvent myself over the years, and I've learned in the music business that you can't live on your past hits, and you have to keep reinventing and keep pushing forward to reach new audiences. And now I'm doing kind of a more of a blues rock thing. It's like, again, just reinventing myself to try to stay in the business and do stuff that keeps me happy as well. And there's been some rough times, man. This business is tough. You just, some years you're just like, how am I going to get through this year? But I'm a hustler. I work hard, and I do, I sort of take any and every opportunity and try to make the best out of it. And I've learned in the business, the things you do for money are important, but sometimes the things you don't do for money are the most important things in your life you'll ever do.
Yeah.
By relationships that you develop. And, I'm always helping people. I'm always kind of going, well, what's your budget? Let me try to work with you. And sometimes those are the times when you get, great opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. Were you a big partier when you were younger?
Like a party guy?
Partier, like...
Not so much, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
didn't think so.
My thing was I went through phases, like any young man, where we drink and we'd party down by the river or whatever and drink whiskey and beer or whatever it was. But I got to periods in my life where I kind of said, you know what, if I keep going down this road, it's going to be trouble. My family, we had drinkers, a lot of drinkers in my family, being an Irish family from north of Boston.
Yeah.
There was drinkers. So I kind of said early on, if I'm not careful, I'll probably be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So I made a rule with myself very early on in my career to never have a drop of alcohol before I hit the stage. And I stick to that to this day.
Yeah.
And it's kept me, sober on stage, doing my best. And, and then by the time I get off stage, it's 1 in the morning, there's not much time left to get drunk. So
Right. Yeah. No, I don't know how people drink and work, and I've never drunk and work in anything in my life. I mean, I like to drink socially, but I don't know how people function, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I can't. I have a few beers and I can't play guitar. I turn into like a mush ball. It just really doesn't work for me. And drugs, when I was very young in my life, I did witness some people on some bad trips with acid and LSD and all this kind of crazy stuff. So it scared me from taking anything that would, that take over my brain.
I give you it sounds like you've been really focused for a long time, like even as a young person. How did you get like that, man? Because that's not, I mean, maybe it is common. I wasn't like that till I was in my mid-30s, to be honest with you. But I really respect that. How did that come about?
Well, I think it came about, it was interesting. When I was growing up in a mill town, you see a lot of hardship, you see a lot of people struggling, you see all this stuff. And I remember, hanging out with my friends when I was young, and, we would steal things like, kids just do, we'd break in and steal something or whatever it was. And, one time I ended up in front of the judge, and I remember the judge saying, if I see you here again, you're going up the county or wherever you're going. Scared the crap out of me, and I remember changing friends in my life, going, okay, I can't hang out with these guys anymore. I'm going to be in trouble if I do.
Yeah.
So I would lose friends, and what saved me, Craig, too, was I was very obsessed with guitar. By the time I was 15, 16 years old, I was literally playing guitar day and night. I wasn't going to a lot of parties. I was missing things. and hanging out. And I'll go back to the martial arts. You know, when I started studying karate as a kid, I was in there 4 nights a week training and playing guitar and training martial arts. And so that taught me a lot about respect. I respect people, and it taught me about respecting myself. And it taught me if you don't work hard at something, you're really not going to get anywhere.
Okay, so the discipline of martial arts and guitar was really setting you at a young age. So that really focus and discipline was something that was like probably second nature to you at the point by the time you were 17, 18.
It really was. By the time I was 17, 18, I was already a very disciplined, hardworking person. And I remember, studying martial arts, and it gave me this sense of, how when you love something and you're passionate about it, you'll work really hard at it and it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
It's like if I told my son, go play 8 hours a day and you'll be the next Gary Hoey, he wouldn't do it. But when I give him something he's excited about, he'll go in and play for an hour. And I think that's what happened to me. I just was, I didn't want to be anywhere else. I just wanted to be playing blues or rock, and I wanted to be punching the heavy bag. That's all I wanted to be doing.
Yeah. Do you still train?
I train in different ways. Like I do physical stuff, and I run an hour a day.
An hour?
I run an hour a day.
Holy shit. Yeah, you're in great shape. I mean, that's like an hour though. Holy shit. That's a lot of cardio, dude. Holy crap.
It's a lot of cardio, man. I'm a crazy cardio guy. I have a super low heart rate. My rested heart rate is like 48 beats a minute.
Oh man, you live to 100.
Yeah, and I took a lot of my time to just focus on music and staying in shape and being physical. And I think that's probably saved my life.
Oh, no. I mean, if you look now, I mean, I think we're probably close in age. You go, I'm sure you do this. You look on Facebook, you see the kids you went to high school with, and it's like, holy shit, when did you stop giving a complete fuck about yourself, man? It's like,
alcohol and cigarettes. I mean, people that smoke a lot and drink a lot, it's going to wear you down. Of course, it's wear on your body and your organs and everything else. And so for me, I think that's a lot of it. And I like staying in shape.
Oh, hell yeah.
Physical, man. It just, for me on tour, I can sing better. I can hang with the fans after the show and come out, and I've still got energy. And it helps.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about gear for a little bit. What is your go-to guitar right now, and what other 2 guitars of yours would round out your top 3?
Well, I'm playing 2 guitars that are my main guitars. Like this, I have a gold Big Apple Strat, which I've had since 1997, and this one, man, still plays amazing. It still looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
20 years old. And then my blue guitar with the lefty headstock is another one I play a lot.
That's also a Fender Strat, right?
Yeah, it's a Fender Stratocaster. It's a double humbucker. Again, from 1997, I got that one. And it's stuck with me through all these years. I still have my Gibson Les Paul that I bought when I was like 15, 1975. And it's a black standard sitting over there in my corral. But those are like my main guitars that I still play all the time. Even though I have, 30, 40 guitars, those are the ones that really stuck with me, because of the way they feel and the way they sound. And when I'm playing live, I like people to hear the sounds of the record. I like them to hear the same kind of tones that I got on the album. So I try to use similar guitars that I'd be recording with. And my amp is EVH. I use the EVH 5153, which was the one that Fender had built for Eddie Van Halen. That's still my go-to amp.
All your necks are rosewood, or do you have a maple and the blue one? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Rosewood, except although my blue one, ironically, they did it with ebony. It's an ebony board. Okay. Which was not something I wanted, but they just did it and I liked it.
Yeah, I prefer ebony or rosewood over maple. What kind of are those stock humbuckers from Fender, or did you mod those?
I'm a Seymour Duncan fan.
Okay.
I use Seymour Duncan, and the JB is my bridge one typically, and then I use a 59 in the neck. I find that combination is really great because it's got good output, but it's not super high output, so you can still get a cleaner tone if you want to.
Awesome. Are there any players who influence you that people might be surprised to hear?
That have influenced me? Yeah, man. I mean, some of my cool influences, like growing up, because I used to do a weird thing. Like I would get into a guitar player, like really obsessed with somebody, and I just like for weeks that's all I would listen to, and I'd kind of just hone in on that guy. And in the beginning, it was the obvious, Hendrix, Clapton, Jeff Beck, Tony Iommi. But then I discovered like Al Di Meola, who played with Chick Corea. Al Di Meola is kind of a great exotic fusion guitarist. And then I would listen to like people like Chet Atkins.
That's interesting.
Which
phenomenal player, obviously.
Yeah, like Chet Atkins, you wouldn't think would maybe be one of my things, but he's somebody I studied. It's funny, every time I say something, I want to play a riff, but
you can go ahead, feel free, man. No one's gonna complain. Certainly not me.
Chet Atkins, I don't even know if my amp is on. Hold on. I don't know if you can hear anything. It might not be. I don't think my amp is on right now. But let me see. I'll grab my acoustic real quick. Maybe you can.
Yeah, of course, man.
I would do stuff like I'd be like.
Nice. There you go, man. You heard it here.
Yeah.
That was some Hoey.
Yeah, man.
Have you ever played a guitar that like you feel is the Holy Grail?
The Holy Grail of guitars?
Yeah, like some people say, "Oh, I picked up a '59 Les Paul one time, and it was like magic."
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been lucky enough to play some of those guitars. Matter of fact, when we were just in Europe, a guy brought down a '59 Burst, Gibson Les Paul Burst, which he said was worth €320,000, which is probably close to $500,000 in America. But I got to play that, and it was pretty insane.
It was,
and I got to play. I don't know if it was Stevie Ray Vaughan's actual like #1. But I was in the Fender custom shop, and John Cruz let me play. They did, I guess, so many of the replicas of his #1, and I think it was the first prototype of the copy of Stevie Ray's. And now, they're going for like $100,000, but it was unbelievable.
It was.
Just to say that it literally, I felt like Stevie was there, just the way it sounded. It was unbelievable.
Are you a big guy, or like do you play with heavy tension strings?
I kind of move around a little bit. I started out with 9 gauge, for a lot of my career. And I've been using 10s lately. But I do tune down a half step to E flat.
Right.
So it makes it, a little slinkier and easier for the vocals on tour. But I think it's important for people to play what feels comfortable.
Yeah.
I figured out the thickness of the string doesn't really affect the tone as much as your hands do. So I advise people to go with lighter strings if it makes them feel comfortable. And 10s are where I've settled in lately.
Yeah. It's funny because when I haven't been playing long, but when I first started playing, you got to play thicker strings, and I'm like, fuck, I don't hear any difference. It hurts like hell, and I can't bend anything. And I'm like, screw that. And I just went back to playing what's comfortable, which is 9s for me.
Which is 9s, yeah. And a lot of my favorite players use 9s, and really low action. It's really what feels good. Some people are heavy-handed, and some people play 9s and they're overstretching or breaking the strings. So it's really, you got to play what feels comfortable, man. Life is tense enough. Lighten up.
Yeah, I agree with you, brother. What is... if I asked you to pick your top 3 Desert Island discs in no particular order and knowing that it can change tomorrow, what would be the first 3 CDs that come to mind?
Oh, wow. If I was stuck on a desert island, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'd probably pick the Allman Brothers Live at Fillmore East.
Just because, you got to.
Pick that. It's just so amazing. I'd probably pick Allman Brothers Live, Fillmore. I'd probably pick Jeff Beck Blow by Blow, because it was one of my favorite albums when I was coming up playing guitar. I'd probably pick Jeff Beck, and I might pick maybe Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti or something.
Yeah, great
I
album.
think a couple double albums. Sorry.
No, that's cool, man. You're smart. So, some people go, "Can I pick a box set?" Absolutely, man. This is fantasy world here on this show. You could do whatever makes you happy.
Buck Johnson box set. I'm in.
That's it, man. Yep. Hey, so what's something that you've learned about yourself along this whole journey you've been on?
One thing I've learned about myself. The thing I've learned about myself is I've definitely learned that that I have I have a very persistent kind of attitude, and I've learned that I won't take no for an answer, and I've learned that I've kind of learned that my personality and the way that I've kind of lived my life has always been true, to who I am. And it's really something that, I'm very thankful for, that just to have the kind of personality that I'm willing to be patient and just, work at what I really want to have in life and not be disappointed when things don't go my way, and try to understand there's a bigger plan to all these things. And that's kind of what I've learned is that I've been living a pretty amazing life because I've been pretty satisfied with wherever I'm at the time, and not let things get me down too much, when things don't go my way, or, it's easy in life to look around and go, well, how come he has this and how come he has that and why don't I get these things? And that's something I try to really be careful about, is just focusing on all the awesome things life has to offer, and why I'm here, what my purpose is.
Yeah, I think that thing you said, that there's a bigger plan, I think that is really important, because, and I know myself, I haven't always been able to think like that. I have in the last 5 years, and because I've seen things and I'm like, now I could say if some shit happens, there's a reason for it. We just don't know what that is today. That being said, you do always sometimes want to hop in a time machine and get to where that tomorrow, it doesn't make the next 6 or 8 months or whatever the time frame is necessarily easier. It just makes your acceptance of it a little easier, So.
Yes, absolutely, man. I think, life is short, life is precious. And as we get older, we realize that even more and more.
Yeah, totally. Tell me something about yourself people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
Oh, man, I'm so boring. I don't know. I guess they would probably, let's see, what would they find out that's kind of different about me and kind of odd? I don't know. I'm obsessed with watching the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, which is probably not that surprising since I'm a martial artist, but I'm like totally obsessed with watching that. I'm obsessed with Judge Judy. I love Judge Judy.
There you go. Is that up in Boston? Is she a Boston?
I don't know. I think she might be Chicago.
Okay.
I'm not really sure, but I'm obsessed with Judge Judy. I'll admit it. I have coffee with my mom every day at 3:00, which is probably weird for her.
No, that is wonderful. That is so cool. No, I think that's wonderful. Do your other siblings, I know you said there's 6 of you growing up, are they all local?
Yeah, well, I have 4 sisters and a brother, and a lot of my sisters are close by, pretty much near me. And my brother's still living in Massachusetts, but a lot of us have gravitated in New Hampshire, so we're living up in New Hampshire. But yeah, I hang with my mom every day. We have coffee at 3:00 every day, because she's 80 years old, and I just want to give her a reason to get up out of the house and come over and hang out with us every day. So she does that, which I really like. And what are some of the other things? I mean, my life is so boring, bro. I wish I had more crazy, interesting things.
No, boring is good, man. I live for boring because there's no like this. Boring is nice. It's manageable, man. It's easy to manage boring. So, and any hobbies? Well, I guess you said some hobbies outside of business. 2 more questions, man. Who's had the biggest influence in your life on you?
My biggest influence on me is absolutely my mom. She's the one that, like I was saying, she had divorced when we were younger, and, just seeing what she went through to raise 6 kids and how hard she worked, and her character, her personality, and the way she is as a person. She gives things to a lot of people, and she's very caring of other people. And she's also a fighter. You know, she's a real fighter. She's a definite, a strong person. So I think I learned a lot from my mom, just in terms of how to be and how to treat people and how to just have that backbone in life and appreciate and make the best of what we got. I would say it's my mom, you know, and then probably, you know, I'd have to say Brian May, you know, from Queen, because I got to tour with him and work with him. And being a young guy, you know, I was on my first record, not knowing what rock stars are really like. You know what I mean? You just sort of getting thrown into that world, and seeing how gracious he was to his fans and how he treated people was a real something to see as an early musician. I saw that he would do anything for his fans when we were overseas doing stuff. And it really stuck with me. And the first time I played on tour with Brian May, he came into my dressing room and introduced himself to me. And he said, I'm Brian. I said, yeah, I guess so. And
I heard of you.
Just said, we're happy to have you on the tour. And he walked me around to the different production people. And he said, this is Gary, take care of him. And it was just so gracious that even to this day, when I'm playing little dive bars and I have opening bands, I always go up to them and I thank them for playing with us. And hey, thanks for, you know, it's good to have you on the show tonight. And it means a lot to those bands. You can tell that, you know, most musicians are like, we don't care who's playing, who's opening, and whatever. And so those little things mean a lot to me, you know. And when I meet bands that play with me on tour and they're like, we're honored to open to you, Mr. Hoey, you know, I'm like, well, I'm happy to have you. And, you know, let's take some pictures or whatever it is, and just have that grace and thing with other people. I learned that from Brian.
That's wonderful, man. And you know what? That's good karma shit too. That comes back to you, man. You know, it really does. And even if it doesn't, it's so much less stressful.
It does. I mean, it comes back to you. And, you know, even when we're touring and we're in venues, you know, we come in and we play different places. I try to come in and be respectful. Like I'm coming in somebody's home. I'm a guest at your house. I'm not going to trash your place. I'm not going to disrespect it. I'm not going to say we don't like your lights and your PA. I'm going to say this is what we got. We're going to make a great show. Let's have a great time tonight. And a lot of venues like having us back because they know we're going to be cool people. And, you know, we're coming in to have a good time. And I always find that makes it way better. And people just bend over backwards to make you happy. And we end up with a better show. And not look for what isn't right, but just look for what is right and what's going to be a great night.
That's awesome, man. I guess you win more with honey than vinegar, right?
Yeah.
Last question, man, and I can't thank you enough for your time. Over the last 10 years, what would you say the biggest change in your personality has been, and has this been a deliberate change or just as a result of aging?
Well, for me, I've become more patient. You know, over the years, I've definitely noticed I've become more patient with, you know, dealing with the whole thing with touring and people and just the whole music industry. You know, it has changed so dramatically in the last 10, 20 years that to survive in the business now, it's a little bit more of a little of this and a little of that. So you almost become like a boutique niche world where you find your audience, you know who that audience is. You obviously want to expand it, but you realize how important they are. And so for me now, like, I just appreciate more the fans that support me and the buyers that want to hire me for things. I find myself more patient and at a point in my life where I'm more thankful for things that I have and grateful. I'm more grateful and have more gratitude about things than maybe I did when I was younger. You know, I maybe felt more entitled, you know, like this is all coming to me and it should be coming to me and I deserve this and I deserve that. And now I just think I'm more grateful and I'm more thankful. It doesn't mean I don't have bad days. You know, everybody has bad days where you wake up feeling sorry for yourself and you're like, why is this happening to me? You know, and then I just smack myself down a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
And I realize that, you know, what are you stressing out about? So, you know, I'm not perfect by any means, but I definitely have more gratitude and more patience.
Thanks, man. Well, I am very grateful and thankful that you came on the show, man, and I really appreciate your time. It's been good getting to know you. And I want to tell people where to find you. First of all, please go check out Gary Hoey's stuff because he's just a fantastic guitar player. He's a great artist, and he's just a really talented guy, and he makes great music, and I've been enjoying it for 20-something years. His last album is called Dust and Bones. He's also got a great course, if you play guitar, on True Fire. I would check that out for sure. He's coming out with another album, hopefully sometime this year.
I'm hoping this year. Yeah, it should be done soon. So if the record company wants to get out by the summer, we should be good to go.
Great, man. You're more than welcome to come on here. We can promote it next time if you'd like. And Gary also gives lessons. I mean, I don't think he's got tons of time, but if you're interested in taking lessons, I would go to his website at garyhoey.com. It's Hoey, and apply, or just, tell him your story on this contact form. And if you're eager to learn, I'm assuming that you could work something out, because he's a good guy and he's pretty easy to deal with. And that's it, man. Any final words of wisdom?
No, I just want to say, thanks so much for having me, on your show. I really enjoyed hanging out with you and talking with you, man. You had amazing questions, and felt like, like I've known you for 20 years, literally, maybe through the music we're somehow connected. But what an easy interview. I truly want to thank you for having me on, and just let all your listeners out there know that they can always reach me. I'm very reachable through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Like, I have my personal messages on everywhere. Like, if people want to send me an actual personal message, like, hey, Gary, what time do you go on Friday night? I literally read all that stuff, and I don't mind having the contact with my fans. Very cool. It's, especially in today's day and age where everybody's like positioning themselves. That's really cool, man. Please check out Gary Hoey's music and listen to The Deep, if nothing else. If you have a pulse, you will love that song. Thanks, man. I appreciate your time. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Many thanks to Gary Hoey for spending time with us, man. This was something I wanted to do since I got hooked up, started this podcast. I really appreciate it. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get notified about future episodes, along with early product announcements and discounts. And remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have some fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.